Hi, my name's JoEllareads and today I have really nice nails and I'm going to be discussing really bad books, just like books I just do not recommend. Don't read this, you're going to waste your time. And I'm going to explain why each of these books annoyed me and were a waste of my time. The most important thing for me when reading is that I'm having a good time. You know this. Reading takes up so much time. You can spend about 16 hours reading a good 1,200 page book if you're a slow reader. You can spend about 8 hours of your day if you want to start a book and then finish it that same day. 8 hours of your day reading. And I just feel that what really matters to me is time. I love story, of course, like story, characters, everything, plot. Love that in a book. But if that is not going well, then I feel like I've wasted my time. And time to me is something that's really important. You understand? So I am actually one of those people who has no problem with DNFing. I used to be a completionist. Like I would think, oh no, like I have to finish it. I have to, even if it's bad. Or I'd also think that, no, I'd be missing out on something. But I've learned that honestly, if a book is not doing it for you, just stop. Because it turns out my instincts were right most of the time. I'm not going to put disclaimers like, oh, if I don't like a book, then you love it. Doesn't mean what. I honestly feel like that's common sense. Honestly, if I don't like a book but you like it, there's no need to start World War III, love. There's no need. Let's get into the books. The first book I want to talk about is one of those booktube favorites. This book was a waste of my time. I wouldn't recommend reading the series any further than the first two books. Court of Thorns and Roses, Court of Mist and Fury, then don't read this. Like, there's no point in reading this. Just watch spoilery reviews if you want to know what happens at the end. Because I read this about up to, well, I think I stopped halfway. Point being, this was just a bad book. It was a total waste of my time. I watched a spoilery video about it and the ending seems like it was a waste of energy. I feel like we've been building up to nothing. There was really no sense of like dread, like, oh my gosh, the heroes, what's going to happen? How are we going to come out of this? It just felt really easy and I really didn't like that. It's like there was zero consequences for all that we've been through three books. And I consider this series not really young adult. I consider it new adult like fantasy. It's very sexually inclined and it's very smutty and the stories seem to revolve more around character relationships than it does around plot, which is something that is not for me. I love good characters 100%. I love them being fleshed out, but I hate when there is no plot. Like when the plot, or rather the plot is just like not even a thing. I want there to be a good plot. I want us to be getting somewhere. I don't want our characters just sitting here doing nothing. I'm not saying I expect every character to go through some kind of epic journey, but if I'm going to read a fantasy book, I might as well get some really good adventure or like story out of it. I can't just be looking at people. I might as well watch reality TV. Okay, that's it for this one. The next book I have is The Priory of the Orange Tree. Halfway through this book, and actually more than halfway, and I can tell you something. I can tell this book is not for me. I don't like it. The characters feel so plain. The plot feels very mixed up. This is like a multiple perspective. We're in different parts of this fantasy world, and there seems to be lots of political tension. But to be very honest, the political tension seems so shallow. The story and the mythology of this land, terrible. Like, it's not terrible, but it could have been so much better. I just feel so detached from everything that happens in this book, and I don't like that. I really had hope for about two characters. I had hope for this one character called Sabran and this other character, Dr. Roos. I had hope for those two characters, Dr. Roos and Sabran, but honestly, at the end, halfway rather, I just can't. I'm gonna watch a spoilery video on this book because honestly, I am intrigued to know what happens at the end. And maybe I'll turn the few pages there and there when I'm like on a lazy day where I don't feel like reading a good book. But otherwise, this book, I don't recommend it. As a high fantasy, I feel it really just gives low fantasy vibes. Like, it doesn't give me a very compelling magic system, doesn't give me a compelling world. It doesn't really give me anything that compels me, you understand? I was talking about this book with a bookstagrammer friend of mine, and I just kept like, I was going on a full-on rant because by the time I called him, we were chatting. At that time, I thought there was still hope for this book, but once I started talking about the book and what I actually like and what I don't like, I realized that I don't want to read this. I honestly don't feel much shame. Maybe this is the type of book where in maybe 4 years, I'm going to revisit it. Maybe I'll like it, but honestly, right now, it's honestly a waste of my time and I don't like it and it's going away. The next book on my list is The Starless Scene. I didn't like this book. I wish it could be that simple, but I want to actually explain why I don't like it. But it has a gorgeous cover. Even the back cover, beautiful. Front cover, gorgeous. Side, chef's kiss. I didn't like this book a lot, and I figured that out after months after having read it. So I read it a few months ago, and I was very confused about my feelings towards the book. I read it pretty fast, so within 8 hours, and I felt that this book was interesting. I thought it was beautifully written. I think I was more like amazed by just like the writing itself and how like lyrical and like just like, I don't know how to explain it, but almost intangible the writing was. It's just very pretty writing. But now that it's been a few months, I actually can talk about my thoughts because it's really sunk in. I flipped through it again a few times, and I can honestly say I don't like this book. I really liked the first book I read from Erin Morgenstern, which was The Night Circus. I really liked that, even though it had that same writing, but at least I felt like there was plot that I could actually follow and I could understand. There were motives and I could like, yeah, this is a good book. I love when there's plot as well as there are characters. But this book, man, I mean, yes, interesting characters, yeah, but the plot just killed me. I get it was meant to be like this dreamy situation and the Starless Scene. I mean, even the title, like you're already confused. I just felt like I was just so confused the whole time, and I was trying to grasp for it and trying to be all like English lit about it. Like, oh, the meaning is trapped within the pages. You have to read between the lines. I don't want to read between the lines with this one. In fact, I did try reading in between the lines, and I guess I can see why people would love it. I can see why someone would see it as their favorite because, oh wow, the writing, beautiful, chef's kiss. But for me, this was just a waste of my time, and I will not revisit this book, at least not in the next year, 2 years from now, because I love rereading my books. But this, man, I think I'd actually be more confused if I restarted this book because oh no, I do not recommend at all. Next book is The Aeronaut Windless. This is the cover, beautiful cover, exquisite. It gives me all the vibes, all like the what's called steampunk situation, which is something that I love. I love watching that type of like sci-fi fiction type of situation, but reading it for the first time with this was not that great. Okay, this one, I don't like it, but I really have hope for it. It's like maybe if I read it on a day where I have no hope and I'm like depressed or something, maybe this book will make me feel better. Maybe I'll enjoy it then. But right now, where I am mentally, I don't need this book. This book is just not it for me. The characters just feel very like chaotically, I don't know, it feels like I'm watching a cartoon. Like that's what it feels like reading this. It feels like I'm watching cartoon characters that I've watched before. It feels very familiar. I've read a lot of books by Jim Butcher. I'm currently reading the Dresden Files, which I highly recommend. Love that series. Chef's kiss, urban fantasy in the best way possible. No freaking jokes. I am familiar with his writing, but this, man, I don't know. I felt like I was reading a different author. There's only one character that I felt really like I cared about, which was this one character who reminded me of Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files. So I felt like, oh, okay, I have something to like latch onto in this book, you know, because that's what is important to me. I need something to latch onto, something to keep me going. And yes, that character is still pretty interesting, but on a whole, this series just feels, at least this first book actually, just feels so bleh, like bread, like just stale bread without butter and jam, like I don't know. I think I can maybe put some marmalade on it. Maybe it'll taste better. But just right now, I just can't do this. I don't recommend it. I feel like it's a waste of time. Oh my gosh. Okay, next. Next is the book Legacy of Trash. And you know that I was really excited to read this book. I made a whole video talking about fantasy books I'm really keen to read at some point. And this is one of them. Love the cover. Read the back. Highly intrigued. Read the book. Waste of my time. This book was so bad. If you want to see my like first-hand reaction about how I felt about this book, you can check this vlog towards the end. I give like a little bit of a mini rant about the book, and I'm gonna do it again. It's just bad. It's just a very bad fantasy book in the sense that what really made it bad was like the magic system, very terribly underexplained for me. The characters just felt like caricatures of themselves. I couldn't. The plot just felt like they were adding drama for the sake of drama's sake. Like the characters were just being chaotic for their own sake, and the characters, a lot of them just felt like they were doing things for the sake of plot. Now that's something I really don't like. Like, I love characters. I love fully rounded characters, but characters who they make their own decisions, and their decisions make sense to who they are as characters. Like, this is one character. This lady's like, oh my gosh, I hate so-and-so's guts. Oh my goodness, I will get revenge. Vengeance is mine, you know? But the minute she meets the guy, and the guy explains himself like, oh, this is why, this is a misunderstanding, blah, blah. Now she's all like, oh, 15 years of hating you and plotting your death. I forgive you. Now, morally, I'm all about forgiveness. It's one of my most important things that I very much treasure. It should be a virtue. But in relation to this character in this type of book, it just, when I think about it, it makes me laugh, because it just made me realize, that moment in the book made me realize that this book is not for me. A shadow has fallen over the Trisian Republic. Yeah, that shadow is how bad the book was. That's just, it overcasts everything that may have been good about this book. Because I do think it has a few things that are good about it. Number one, the writing, very simple in the sense that you won't get lost. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the writing style, I don't think I got too lost. But because the plot was so mismanaged and the magic was not really explained, it made me feel lost. But at its core, the writing is actually pretty alright. Like, you're not gonna die from confusion from it. I don't recommend this book at all. Don't read it. Just like, I mean, if you really want to, but I don't recommend. And that's the tea. Next book is, okay, this one, I did enjoy it, but I don't recommend it. I know, weird. This book is Steel Crow Saga. So I finished it recently. No, I finished it a few months ago, like quite a while ago actually, sometime last year, panoramic times, you know? I finished it, and the minute I finished it, I thought it had a lot of good. A lot of the good outweighed the bad, but very slimly. Like, 5 things made it really good, but then 4 things made it really bad. But so it just won by, like, you know, a hair. I just didn't like it. I felt that there was something about this book that just didn't sit well with me. Like, I think, you know what I think it is? I think the fact that it's trying to be the best standalone it can possibly be, and I don't need it to do that. Maybe I also put standalones at a very high benchmark, because my benchmark is Warbreaker, because Warbreaker to me is one of the best standalones I've ever read, and I freaking love it. And I feel like this was trying to be as good as that, but consciously. I feel like Warbreaker is good without having to think about it. You know what I'm saying? It's just good for good sake. But this is like trying to be good, and I can see it trying, and it just puts me off. It just feels like a pick-me girl, like trying her best to just really just be picked and be a #1 spot and loved, but it's just not doing it, love. It's not doing it. I don't recommend it, but I think you can enjoy it. Like, I don't know, if you're really interested in the story. I think I talked about this. Like, I talked about how the blurb really captured me. I'm gonna put the blurb over here. I think it's really interesting, but at the end of the day, would I recommend it rather? Would I recommend this book, like, to my sister, for example, because she does read? No, I will not recommend it to her. Did I enjoy it? You know what? I enjoyed it more than I did not enjoy it, so it's weird. But yeah, I don't recommend, but if you really want to, go for it. But I don't think you're gonna get much out of it, you know? It was like the better of the worst. Like, the last one for now is gonna be, I'm sad about this book. The last book is Spinning Silver, and this has been on my DNF for I think years now. And the first time I read it pretty fast. I got up to, like, towards the end. This is where I'm at. Oh, actually, this bookmarker is so cute. It really doesn't have to be here anymore. Let me show you. I got this bookmarker. It's so pretty. I love this bookmarker. So it doesn't need to be in a book that I don't like anymore. I'll just doggy ear the page so I can always remember where I last was, because honestly, I think maybe this book was like wrong timing. Like, I should have read this. Maybe I should have first read it now, because I feel my headspace is ready for a type of book like this. But no, I'm not going to read it because I'm still really put off from it. What I didn't like about this book, it's a standalone. And I love the author's writing in the other book, Uprooted. Really loved it. And I feel like they're very similar books, but something about this book just doesn't click with me. I don't know what it is. Maybe also the reading experience, because it's a hardback instead of a paperback, and I tend to enjoy reading a paperback way more than reading a hardback. Or maybe it was just I don't know, something about it. I feel like I didn't connect with the characters as much as I wanted to, especially the male characters, because I know that the female characters are the leads. Don't get me wrong. I love it when the leads are there, whether male or female. I love main characters, obviously. But when side characters feel this dry or like feel like caricatures of themselves, I just get like, no. Like, I feel like the male characters didn't do enough, or like weren't really shown enough, or I don't know. I know it's about these girls, these two girls. It's mostly about them and how their stories intertwine. But something about the story just really doesn't get with me. I don't know what it is. And there's just so much to like about the book, but so much that I also just didn't like about it. It really puts me off. I can't even really put a finger on it because obviously, I mean, I read all this in quite a short time, but finishing that last chunk, I just didn't care anymore, and I feel like that's worth noting. So yeah, I don't recommend this book, but if you really want to read it, go for it. Especially if you want that like winter feel, magical in the woods, snow vibes, I think it's really nice for winter to read this. But honestly, I don't recommend it at all. If you're the type of reader that I am, this is not going to be for you, at least not if you're, I don't know, time and place, man. I don't know. I'll reread this, definitely. I'm gonna reread this like maybe in a couple of years, maybe when I've forgotten the plot enough that I can restart and like really enjoy it. I'll probably have different things to say then, but right now it just didn't work for me and where I was in my life. So yeah. Okay, that's all for now, and these are all the books that I just do not recommend whatsoever. I'll probably do this again if I have any more books that I really don't enjoy, but for now, this is it. I feel like, oh, there's one more book. This book right here. I don't like it so much that I can't even go to my room and get it. Crimson Bound. Crimson Bound. This book was terrible. It was so bad, but at least Crimson Bound kept me like at attention, and I actually finished it really quickly. I think I read this in one night, but damn, was it a bad book. It was just such trashy YA, but Crimson Bound. Okay, that's it. Now I'm done. Okay, thank you for watching. If you really like this video, let me know, and tell me what book you would not recommend. Like, I feel like that's not talked about enough. Like, tell me a book that you would not recommend. Maybe in the comments. I don't know, if I don't recommend these books, maybe you'll like them, you know. Sometimes a book that somebody else doesn't like happens to be the book that you just always needed in your whole life. I'm done for now. I'm gonna go and change my top so I can do the other video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Come on, let's go make sandwich.